people coming with just agreeing with a couple of principles, and they say they're Baha'i, and they sign and they're coming. In this University of Baha'ullah, everybody is welcome. Absolutely. Even a man in jail, if he wants to be a Baha'i, nobody prevents him. He can send a card and say, I'm a Baha'i. He's right in jail. He understood it. So be it. But after being a Baha'i, so far getting admitted in this university, we have to start to understand it. So what is it that we got? And work for it. And if we find that we are lazy and we can't do activity in it, quite honestly, it would be a favor to Baha'u'llah that we just go and resign and say that we cannot, participate in it in an active way. I think the Baha'i faith is entering an era that for the mass teaching purposes, we should register only those who are teaching the Baha'i faith. If you don't want to teach the Baha'i faith, you just want to come to the meeting and gathering, it's great. But you don't need to be a Baha'i to participate in voting and constructing the social structures of the Baha'is by having no information about it. That is why these Baha'is, most of them are sign-up Baha'is, I call them. And they're like cars. Broken car, just came in a parking lot, shut down the car, and they never moved to do anything. So the other people, they can't come into the Baha'i faith, quite honestly, is because of the Baha'is themselves. I was going to say that in another video for the Persians, but being in Iran, I know the only groups of Iranian that they 100% they knew what this mullahism is, what are the power of these clergies, and what negative forces this were the Baha'is. Because many of them, they were killed by the decrees of these mullahs in the past. They knew very well about it. And there were close to 700,000 of them in Iran. By the, I talked to Mr. Qaim Maqami once as a kid when I was in Iran, and he said to me in Tawheed, there is right about 700,000 Baha'is in Iran. The gentleman was martyred and killed in Iran during the revolution. So I always said that if these Baha'is in Iran, they had no fear, and they were not contaminated with all money and the Western way of life, and trying all of them trying to get bigger through demonstrating themselves by the money power, by big car, by big house, by all this attachment to the West, they would come in the streets. So Iranians, they could see with their own eyes that there is 700,000 Baha'is here in Iran. And they would force the government, the present government, to give them the right of the citizenship in Iran. And they never did this. But most of them, they were attached themselves to the Shah of Iran, and they were saying that, oh, this king is so much good for us, because the guy was simply against Islam, but he was also not a Baha'i. People, they knew Baha'is in Iran, they think anybody who's against the mullahs, then he's a good, he's a friend. That's what they say, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. That's not the case at all. This is again a hoax. In this case, this guy was the enemy of the enemies of the Baha'is, but he was also the enemy of the Baha'is themselves too. And people didn't see it. Again, the leaders. If they would have come right outside, sure, maybe a few people get arrested, but at that time, Baha'is were powerful in Israel, powerful in Canada, in the United States, in many places in Australia and England. How could the past regime of Iran do anything to them? Nothing would have happened. But they didn't do it, they didn't do it, they didn't do it. So the new regime came and destroyed Iran and Iranians. But if 700,000 people behind they would come in the streets, imagine, it was the Muslims in Iran would have been flabbergasted to see that sheer number is there. And if they would have given a pamphlet of 10 pages that there is another faith called Baha'i faith in Iran, and an alternative to these mullahs and the regime, that would have been enough. That would have been enough antidote, antibiotic, enough that if it was vaccinated to the Iranian mind, they would never go for such regimes that they have right now and they're suffering from. So who is responsible for the present regime of Iran? 95% are the Baha'is of Iran are responsible for it to come up. And when I was a kid in Iran, when a regime was falling down, and it was too late, so they issued a little pamphlet, I remember, informing the Iranians about what's happening and how many Baha'is are in Iran. But it was too late. I distributed a pamphlet to a lot of Iranians. They were listening to it. But, you know, at that point, they were not interested. It was too late for them. You know, now they were bringing the Shah down, and they just wanted to rely on their spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khomeini. And who could have made this awareness to them? No one in Iran knew about this except the Baha'is, you see, and they didn't do it. So, not understanding the Baha'i faith by the people of the world and not paying attention to this formula of God for the unity of the planet, for the unity of the spiritual unity of people, create that one family that so much, you know, is the slogan of the singers, we are the world. But no one reads, the very Lord of the world have come here and have died for this ideology. This is not an ideology then. You know, but the most infallible God who has created you has revealed this, and you do not pay attention to it. So that's a big factor, really, in that why the world is not united. And finally, I would say that since the spiritual needs are a part of the instinctive desires, I've said that before, there were two movements taking place in our contemporary centuries. One was to eradicate religion by the communism, and the other one was to abandon it by the imperialism and capitalism of the West. Both of them failed. They could not. Now they've understood that religious desires, just like economical desires and social desires, is an instinctive matter. Man is like the salmon fish and wants to go back to his origin. He wants to know where is he coming from. There's an instinctive desire for him to know, is he connected to God? There are many, many questions. He sleeps in the night and he gets up in the morning with the dreams, with the visions. Some of them good, some of them bad. Doesn't know what they are. He sees thousands of people every day of his close ones. They're dying. They're going to graves, to cemeteries, and he doesn't know where this thing ends. Therefore, he needs some conclusive answer that convinces him. And in this case, the new trend is that let's start new stuff, like this new age, you know, Wicca and all that. How about some fortune tellings, tarot card readings, and you know, reading the palm of your hand, dressing differently, you know, using scents and rituals. They think they're all spirituality. So the whole word, the word of a spirituality is completely, its meaning is lost from dictionary. People don't know what it means by being a spiritual. The simple goodness and kindness and forgiveness and these attributes and virtues, that's all what the spirituality is. They are replacing it with the, again, outwardly superficial and artificials, all kind of things that create again business. This is a spiritual trend, you know. They try to make money again out of the rest of the people that are left and they don't know what to do. They're creating the temple Wicca. The boy was from the University of Guelph. His name was Jason, environmental engineer. When he heard I was talking about the Baha'i faith, this boy from Canada, that, you know, on the top crop of humanity from this country, is trying to get me to go into the Wicca. And he's actually wearing a rope to go to the bush because he would feel the spirits, he says, at the Halloween. You see what I mean? After all that studies that he has done as an engineer, has brought him up down to this nethermost abyss of understanding. Part of him is in 20th century, and part of him lives in the caves of the northern Scottish 10,000 years ago. Could you see that? Why? Because the lack of this spirituality, not being recognized as an instinctive desires, has been opportunists are using, exploiting the situations, but creating this kind of ideologies. And so many other things that are called spiritual, you know, trying to say that this is the way we have to go for the spirituality. Okay, I think I covered about 9 different reasons that causes this lack of unity in the world right now, lack of understanding. And every one of them could be defined by certain words in the dictionary. You choose the word, what you want to call them. But because the words are limited and they have an old definitions and the issues that we're dealing right now is different, someday perhaps as linguistic philosophers are complaining about the language as they don't know what it means. They would pay attention to this spiritual part of humanity, and they try to redefine the words as it was used 1,000 years ago to be applicable for today's life. Very well, the time is about 2 o'clock, and I think it was 1 o'clock. I've gone about 1 hour on this topic. I apologize for explaining too much about it, but again, this is it. I'm sharing my opinion. If it was useful to you, say a prayer after my death and my ascension. And if you didn't like it, do not criticize it. Just say the man tried. So long, may God be with you.